Okay, so what we want to do, this computer doesn't have too many issues now like we had yesterday. It's actually cooperating. Okay, so that very bottom line, okay, what can you tell me? That's right. Hey, pretty snazzy, aren't they? They're given to me. And I know there's a sticker on the bottom too, I know. That's my version of being Mini Pearl. Nobody knows who Mini Pearl is. There is one person who knows who Mini Pearl is. Okay, so this is probably a useless bit of information, but it's sometimes what makes things stand out. If you know who Mini Pearl is, which you say you do, right? I can't hear you. Yes, so you don't know who Mini Pearl is. Okay. Again, here's some of this useless bit of information. She was on a show called Hee Haw, something your grandparents are probably familiar with. Okay? And with this, with every hat that she wore, yes, her price tags were always on her hats that she wore. I'm surprised you knew that. Okay? All right. That's right. That's right. Okay. Price tag still on it? Yep, it's still on there. 10.5 wides. Yeah, these were given to me by my brother when they're orthotic shoes, and when he can't bring them back, I think because they're specially made or specially ordered. So I thought I'd try them on, and yeah, they fit. I need to change into my dress shoes because it's maybe not professional. But these shoes are snazzy, though, aren't they? But how many people look at other people's shoes, though? Oh, okay. Fair enough. Okay, so back to this. What can you tell me about labeling in this equation? All three variables. Work, labeled in what? Joules. Okay? And force, of course, labeled in newtons. And then distance, probably in meters. That's going to be the most common label that you would use. Okay? So with that, when we expand to what work actually is, we calculate power and then ultimately horsepower. And one of the things that sticks out in my mind, okay, is the idea when I was working at the golf course in Del Rapids this summer, sitting on a mower for, let's say, 4 or 5 hours a day. What I would do is listen to Kello Talk, and after some of the local shows were over, that's talk radio, they would have, it was called the Under the Hood Show with the Shannon Nordstrom, I think, is on that show. And yeah, talking about cars and motors. But anyway, regardless, listening to this show, one of the things that they talked about is for some of you farmers, okay, when you're upgrading to maybe a different type of horse trailer or whatever it is you may be towing behind that truck, if you buy a bigger trailer, it doesn't necessarily mean that your truck is going to be able to pull that. Okay, a couple factors probably would limit that is what's called the towing package. Let me try that again. The towing package. Okay, because if it's not designed to pull whatever it is that you're trying to, you're going to probably burn out your transmission. Okay, and on this show they're talking about that's why sometimes you see trucks on the interstate. I don't think they're talking about around here. Some of these calls that come in on this station on this show on this station are sometimes from California, Florida. Some of those stick out in my mind, but that's one of the things that you would want to be conscious or aware of as you're upgrading with equipment, whether it's something to haul goods, cattle, or anything to that effect, or if your equipment is getting bigger that you're pulling on the farm, if you buy bigger equipment, you may have to buy a bigger tractor. And all that comes to is efficiency. It could be an idea that if you buy a bigger field cultivator or a bigger disc, yeah, your tractor might be able to pull that, but it might not be able to pull it very efficiently. And what I mean by that is typically what may take you, let's say, a day to do, maybe it's going to be a day and a half. Now, that doesn't sound like a whole lot, but when you start adding those half a days in over a growing season, that can maybe set you back maybe 3, 4, maybe even 5 days. And it could be such a thing for some of the farmers around here. If you were missing 5 days for some reason or another, you may not have been able to get into a field to get that planted in time. So again, it might not sound like that big of an issue, but it certainly can be, especially when you're dealing with trying to pull lots and lots of newtons of resistance force, because that's essentially what it is that you're doing. Okay, but that's something I would think is probably discussed at the dealership. I don't know what's all involved when maybe you're trading in equipment, and I would think the salesman's asking, so what are you trying to pull with this, whether it's a truck, whether it's a tractor, or even maybe that of a semi. So I want to say that, help me out here, people, you might know more than myself. If you're hauling livestock in, they still call them pot bellies, does that sound right? Just pots? Okay, well, regardless, what would you, most of them are 40, 45 feet, maybe? Does that sound right? Any, any input? Sure. Okay. And maybe so. And I don't know if you can buy longer ones. It used to be that when I was growing up, you might have 8 back wheels or 2 axles, but now you see some of them that actually have 3. So it's just probably pulling more weight, and that's could be maybe why some of these roads have problems with buckling and braking, and I'm not saying that's the problem, but it can be a factor. Anyway, moving forward, trying to make some relevancy of what it is that you're learning in here and applying to what you may see out in, I don't want to say the real world, but out in society, if you want to call it that. Okay. Not that I would be picking on anyone, and I'm not, but some of you may know that I'm going into some sort of mechanic related field, whether it's auto mechanics, diesel mechanics. Is that anybody in here? Possibly. And maybe you don't know. And it comes up as a conversation in parent teacher conferences. I wouldn't expect that you would know what it is you want to be doing after high school, but some of you may have somewhat of an idea, maybe yes, maybe no. That's going to get to be more and more important, especially towards the end of your sophomore year. The reason for that is when you get to be a junior, that's when some of your elective classes start as opposed to required ones. Okay? Because with the 14 zoology students that we have this year, I believe 10 of those are seniors, 4 of them are juniors, because there's some that are taking that class for their science requirement, because you do need 3 years of science. Okay, some want to take more, some do 3, some do 4, some do up to 5 and even 6. Okay, I always like to revert back to, let's see here, the original was, I believe Kyrie. Yes, she was the first one. And some of you are going to think that maybe she's crazy for doing this because she was followed by Malik and some other students. But when 8:30 rolled around, left the room at 11:05. So first hour in here, second hour in here, third hour in here. Is that crazy? 3 science classes in a row. I think Mr. Holt would agree. That's just awesome. That's the way to go. Okay? And this is one of the things that when you first hear this phrase, I don't know if you'd ever heard it, the more you know, the less you have to learn. How many of you think you just heard that? Think that just wasted 5 seconds of my day I won't get back. I don't know if I said it in 5 seconds. But the way that you would apply it, the more that you know when you leave this place the last time as seniors, and the less you have to learn, whether it's going to Mitchell Tech, Southeast Tech, Dakota State, South Dakota State, any one of those. Oh, if Mrs. Angle was in here, she would slap somebody, whoever just did. I would say, please don't do that. Someone's going to just snap. Okay? But I don't make things an issue unless it becomes one. So, but anyway, so the more that you know here, the less you have to learn when you get off into your associated career path. Okay? Because some of the students that are going into nursing up at SDSU, having organic chemistry at this level, it really helps them prepare to be successful taking that next step. Okay? Because that's one of them applications. The more that they knew here, the less they had to learn up there. Okay? So if you're comfortable walking into that class before it even starts, it makes that process of being in college so much more successful. Okay? And that's the whole idea. I honestly think, are some of you worried about once you leave high school trying to find a career path where you're not going to be totally in debt? In debt, what do we mean by that? Student loans. Okay? But there are ways around that. Scholarships. For some of you who want to be a mechanic of some sort, and I'm willing to bet that some people in here, you can get your tuition fully paid for, providing you stay in this state for 5 years. But some of you might be thinking, I just want to get out of the Midwest. Maybe so, and that's quite possible. Might think, don't like the weather, don't like the people. Maybe yes, maybe no. But some of you are probably going to go into farming too, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. Whatever it is you choose to for a career path, just I'm going to be a wind turbine technician. Go and be the best wind turbine technician that you can be, or a mechanic, or a nurse, or anything to that effect. So, forward, when we're dealing with power, it's, as you can see, it's very much related to work because it's in the formula. We're concerned with how efficiently that work is getting done. And that's why we divide by this variable, which is time. How long is it taking to get that work done? Okay? In other words, I saw some of you football players doing increment sprints. Is that what you want to call? I don't know what you would call that. You maybe did 10 yards up and back. Okay? So ideally, when you, let's say if you had the times that you did that in something similar in September as opposed to now, you should be more efficient, right? So those times don't go this way, they go this way. So what does this mean if we're closing this gap? The distance isn't getting shorter, but the time getting it done is getting shorter. In other words, you just become more efficient. Human body kind of works like that. The better you take care of it, the better you're going to be. That's right. Okay, so who can we pick on? Tegan is a machine. What is a machine? We can say it's Tegan. Okay? But sometimes you could say, LeBron James is a machine. Um, who else could we? A professional athlete we could. Well, yeah. Aaron Rodgers. Ah. Now, Mr. Hoth, when that name comes up, that means an automatic fail. That's awesome. So, but nonetheless, you got to give credit where credit's due. I think you would agree, correct? Aaron Rodgers does a really good job. Definitely worth what he's getting paid for. Well, I don't know. Like someone from plays for Minnesota, but he didn't steal it either. Oh well, I don't know. Yes.
They haven't played anyone. They played the Redskins, the Eagles, and they're both terrible. Am I wrong? Okay.
Well.
Defense and he's terrible. They played the Bears with four,
See,
they played the Bears with 4 defensive starters out and they got destroyed.
The comments that you're making, and I look at this shirt and I say, that's the spirit.
I mean, it's just realistic.
Well, you know, that's
I'm not a
true.
Vikings fan that says
That's
we
true.
win the Super Bowl every year and then we
There's,
make it to the first round playoffs.
I'm not quite there, but okay. You see that with glasses of water or drinking glasses. Okay. You got an optimist who says, yeah, it's half full. A pessimist who says it's half empty. And then we've got a realist who just says, that's just the way it is. You're not wrong. Yeah. So, but we don't have to point it out. No, I'm just kidding. That's fine. Okay. So one of the things that we see here when we're talking about machines, I almost forgot. We've got some. It was called the world's strongest. Has anyone ever been to Florida to Kennedy Space Center? I don't know why you might have gone there, but it's just amazing some of the tracks that they use to carry them space shuttles out. I want to say those tracks are probably 30 feet wide, and that's one, so you got 2 of them. And I think what it said, if that machine is empty, or there's nothing on it, it can move 2 miles an hour. But then if it has the space shuttle on it, 1 mile an hour. But would you want that moving very fast? No, because why? It's very top heavy. So upon doing that, if you had moved too fast, yes, they could probably tip over. For anyone who's, of course, when you drive to school, how many of you take your backpack home? It has your books in it. You put it in the back seat. Okay? Well, sometimes what happens, for anybody who knows, you drive down the road, a little raccoon goes scurrying over the road or something, and you apply the brakes quite, I want to say, yes, thank you. That's the word I was looking for, forcefully. What does that backpack do? It goes forward, hits you in the backside of your seat. So for the same reason, you would not want that moving very fast, because any unstable movement of that, down goes the shuttle. Okay? So when it comes to a lot of, especially combine heads, if you want to look at it that way, what would you think? Maybe about probably a week to maybe 3 or 4 days before you even hit the field. What are you going through in all the moving parts on that combine head with what type of gun? Why would you, it could be tightening things up, but why would you have a grease gun? What are two things when you're talking about moving parts, you're greasing them zerks because anything that comes in contact with one another, heat is certainly something you want to dissipate. Because when you have a lot of these moving parts, bad things can happen if they get too hot. Okay, we could say a chain breaks or a bushing or any type of fitting. You can snap that. Okay? So that was one of the things that was also brought to our attention, that once a week on this mower you hit all of the zerks on there, just on account of it just makes the efficiency of that, keep it from breaking down. Okay, and I don't know if 3 days sounds about right. I don't know, but some of you farmers are maybe more familiar with that than I am. Okay. Okay. So one of the things I'm going to have to show you a picture of that when we're talking about this crowbar, the idea that you use that as a lever, and it certainly makes work much easier because you're increasing the force. Then you're going to also increase the applied force on what it does. And I've got a hydraulic jack that I'll bring in here at some point. And for anyone, is anyone not familiar with what a hydraulic jack even would look like? Because all that fluid in there, as you increase the pressure, you're magnifying the force and what it is used to lift something. Okay, so where does that put us here? Increasing, okay, I think at the end of this is where we'll stop for today. Yeah, and distance. Yep. Okay, so as we look at the rest of the week, you have some vocab terms that are due on Friday. Tomorrow, I have your first paper that deals with work and power. Eventually, we'll get to pressure. Okay, that'll be another formula that we're going to add to the rest of that what you have. So as of right now, you should have maybe 6 formulas. It's here. So what? Velocity, acceleration, force, momentum, work, power, and eventually we will get to that of pressure as well, and horsepower, and then all right. So we'll catch up to you next time.